Hi everyone, and welcome to your weekly energy forecast, a general tarot guidance taking a look at how this week's energies are likely to play out in our lives individually, but also collectively. Now I would like to start this reading with the collective perspective first, because these cards are very straightforward. The Strength, the Nine of Wands, the Three of Swords reversed, and the Devil. And the big picture is basically a power shift, but this power shift is definitely going to happen in a rather chaotic and not very balanced and not very peaceful way. Because you see, the Strength is clarified by the Six of Wands and the Six of Swords, and this means some kind of victory, some kind of triumph, which leads to evolution, which leads to dynamism, which leads to like a totally different outcome than was expected. And if we try to translate this, it's very simple. It has to do with the protests, with people rising up, people challenging all the decisions, all the potential solutions offered by centralized power. And this might be one of those moments when the pressure that the community and the power of the people apply is going to be so strong that centralized power is going to be ready to make compromises and remove certain obstacles, which means that, whatever people desire, as in why are they protesting for, and the reasons for the protest is not very simple, because different groups of people are dissatisfied by very different things, and there are times when those things are actually in contradiction to one another. So even though centralized power is backing up a little bit, it might be the case that exactly different groups of people with different interests are gonna battle each other. So basically the unrest, the conflict, the struggle takes on a totally different kind of turn. And even though this is gonna feel a little bit chaotic, it will still lead to a feeling of progress, a feeling that a breakthrough which has to mean some kind of compromise, a stability, something which kind of potentially works for everyone, is very near, but this is just the experimental phase, if you know what I mean. Now this Nine of Wands with the Nine of Cups and Seven of Cups does represent a change or a reconfiguration in the social and, better said, political climate. Certain politicians who were allied, who may form a group or a coalition, might betray each other. And even though this might not really have anything to do with people personally and why are they protesting, etc., this may cause like a political battle, a political conflict. The power of the law, for example, like Supreme Court of Justice and anything like that, might also get involved. And this Nine of Cups is really strange in a sense, because this isn't something positive, but it will delight people. They will interpret this as the truth coming out when actually it disadvantages everyone. But this might actually reflect from a karmic perspective, and don't interpret this the wrong way. This is not like my personal criticism, but it's more like our representatives, the politicians, well, they do reflect a certain part of us, a certain part of our inner world as well. And when something unfavorable happens to those who we perceive that failed us, at least from an emotional perspective, we do see that as a kind of victory, as either karma at play or divine justice at play, or simply we might feel a certain kind of satisfaction that we knew this all along. We felt that their hearts their alliances, their agreements were never ever honest. But the Seven of Cups actually reversed actually tells us that if we look at it from a totally different perspective, where on one hand it's not something positive for any of us because this means further instability, and on the other hand this also speaks about us as well, where even if we are honest people, even if we are way more balanced than our representatives, our politicians, well, we're still unstable on the inside. We don't really know where our true alliances lie. So if anything, this political chaos, turmoil, betrayal and stuff like that should actually make us think rather than to perceive it as something, as a wish fulfilled, basically, the Nine of Cups. But at the same time, this is actually a wish fulfilled because a lot of people didn't wish well for those people who kept failing and failing and failing. And this is also part of the truth because at the end of the day, that's their job and they failed at their jobs and they still got paid, and this wouldn't be tolerated in any other lucrative environment. When you fail at your job, you get fired or there are consequences. Now the last part with the Three of Swords reversed, clarified by the Ace of Swords and the Magician, 1-1, that means a powerful truth coming out. A truth about something that really, really frightened us, the Three of Swords of course. So it's very easy to interpret that it's either the COVID situation, something about the virus, something about our rights, our liberties, especially about the future, where we either get some good news but from a very, let's say, scientific perspective, because the Ace of Swords is like empirical, it's not just what we interpret reality as. Usually it's the truth, usually it's very objective and not polarized emotionally. And the Magician, well, it gives us options, it gives us a totally different kind of foresight about our futures. So this is the energy of clarity coming in, but I repeat, from a rather scientific perspective, and perhaps that is the reason why the Three of Swords is reversed. It's gonna calm us, it's gonna soothe our fears, it's gonna make us feel as if things are not quite as bad as we thought they were gonna be. But of course this is just information, so what it means practically, we don't know yet, no one will know yet. This can also represent something rather legal, where perhaps the ruling of a very important court of justice, like an international one or highly influential one, is kind of going to offer guarantees or protection that something that we feared is not gonna come to pass. And if the ruling is final, it's clear as daylight, so that will also calm us. But the devil speaks about manipulation and the increasing efforts of certain groups of people, especially those who are hidden and we don't see them for what they are, who will try to diminish all of this. Because at the end of the day, this should be like good news, this should be like people at least being promised to get what they ask for. And that should be like a really good news for everyone, regardless of their point of view, regardless of their philosophies, regardless of which side they support, which group or even political party or ideological party. When freedom is being promised, well, that should be taken as a moment of triumph, a moment of victory, a moment of genuine optimism for all of us. But this is exactly the moment when we can actually see who the true manipulator is, because chances are certain groups, as I said, certain people are gonna react extremely violently, defiantly, and they will really, really want to stir up hatred, conflict, add fuel to the fire, and that's how they will reveal themselves. Because, when centralized power, regardless of what that means for us, may it be our government or just locally a mayor or internationally the world powers or whoever rules the world, wants to make compromises, they adapt a totally different kind of attitude where they are actually becoming permissive and just giving in to what people demand because of course they have no choice. Well, that kind of means that they are already part of the solution, which means that it is gonna be exactly those people, for example, representatives of a group or those who are gonna express their severe dissatisfaction and anger that solutions are actually on their way. They're not perfect, but something actually happened. So progress and some kind of compromise, some kind of harmony is likely to be part of our futures, even close futures. And if they oppose it strongly, if this makes them angry, and if they try to twist and turn all of this, well, they just reveal themselves. Those who are truly rational and just have a little bit of common sense will immediately see through and will ask themselves, well, if what you asked for is being granted, then why are you so angry? Why do you demand more? And when I say demand more, of course we demand more because we are people, we are human beings. But there is a question of measure. When someone is actually doing what you're asking and it's working on it, you're not going to bombard them 24/7 because you know that everyone needs a little bit of time and energy and of course hard work to get you what you want. So this already means that at least you'll try to be as understanding and as patient as possible. Yet those who will behave and take this in an extremely irrational way, where indirectly through their actions or their opposition, let's say, they will even want to diminish any kind of progress, any kind of effort, trying their hardest to reveal, well, it's not good enough, it's not perfect, it's not going to lead anywhere, etc. Well, that already speaks for itself. And I'm going to end the collective part here because this week probably all of us can make our own opinions, interpret this the way we want it, and all of us are going to at least see things from a different perspective. Now, individually speaking, these cards can represent a lot of very quick and spontaneous changes in our lives. But the problem is that it will kind of overload our lives. And even though there are going to be a lot of smaller but positive changes, or maybe progress, or maybe a communication and information that ultimately delivers good news, chances are it's not going to be instant, where we might only receive the information, or let's say, whatever we need in our lives urgently, it may enter, yet the big picture, what we do with the help, with the resources, with the changes, with the evolution of events in our lives, will involve a little bit of work or making choices, or perhaps we may receive just promises that the completion of something, like for example a contract or an employment or a bonus or whatever might satisfy our needs, is gonna take place on a later date. And even if the date is crystal clear to us because it's a promise after all, it might still send us into a frustration because we feel that, well, I don't need it in 2 months or 3 months or even 2 weeks. I really need it now in my life because I feel ready to use it, to work with it, to live it, This is when I'm starting to feel that I'm in a position of power and I can't wait any longer. It is almost unreasonable to wait longer than this, but this is where that part just doesn't depend on us, so we will have no choice but to just swallow our frustration and not allow it to turn into a very stubborn Freudian type of inner anger which leads to depression. Now let's take a look at the energies in more detail. So we have again the strength clarified by the Six of Wands and the Six of Swords. It means empowerment. And this can mean psychological empowerment, spiritual empowerment. It can simply mean physical empowerment, where you feel that you have way more physical energy to do certain kind of things, activities. Or maybe it means that you have more time to focus on things which are important for you. And the Six of Wands and Six of Swords is also very important because it can mean either some kind of triumph, victory, breakthrough, which leads to progress. So it doesn't resolve a problem in its integrity, but it does help significantly. If the Six of Swords represents a period of transition, while combined with the Six of Wands, it means that you're almost done, you're almost at the finish line. You are definitely getting out of blockages. But the thing is that this still doesn't mean that a wonderful new beginning or a new start or something which gives you the chance to live this empowerment permanently is gonna complete yet. That is what is coming next. And perhaps you knowing that it will take a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of focus, even though you might have everything that you need this time. Well, that might create a little bit of frustration where, of course, you're very happy, you're satisfied, you're pleased, but you're also really looking forward to the work part, to the effort part. But this kind of duality has to be solved by each and every person their own unique way. Now the Nine of Wands and the Nine of Cups with the Seven of Cups reversed is a really, really good sign, because this Nine of Wands means strength, great strength in opposition. So we are fighting our challenges, we're enduring, we're trying to keep ourselves in a certain kind of balance that we are able to create in this present moment. Even if it's not perfect, we have no choice but to try and keep sane, try and keep grounded, try and keep optimistic, hopeful, And this is a struggle, this isn't easy. This is actually requiring all of our last strength to be invested into this. Where the opposition, well, that means whatever is blocking us in our lives right now individually. For some people it's career, for other people it's their income, for other people it's their families, or other people, their living conditions, their social positions, their partners. For other people still it can mean a big workload, so they might be very, very busy, they might not have any time for themselves. And even though this is actually a good thing, yet still burnout or like true fatigue, one which breaks you down, is not that far. So you're at the limit. You have the strength and you're using it, you're resisting, you're keeping strong. Perhaps for some people, this is actually turned into creativity. This tension, this stress, this struggle might be actually influencing them in a positive way, where they create something out of it, they alchemize it, they turn it into something. And that is absolutely fine, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. Both emotionally, physically, mentally, from any perspective, it's really, really not easy. But this is where that Nine of Cups comes into play. Help is on its way. So something which you urgently need in your life, something which you might have asked for, asked the universe, asked other people, your friends, family, or maybe yourself, is actually gonna enter your life, or even if it doesn't enter this week straight away, you will 100% be sure that its completion is a certainty now. And this, without a shadow of doubt, is gonna be like a great help. And regardless of how this comes into play, like through other people, through coincidence, through, whatever possibilities you personally have in your life, it will still gonna feel like divine help. It will still gonna feel like your prayer has been heard and answered. But this is where the Seven of Cups reversed also comes into play and tells you, but it's not quite enough for you to feel like you're living a dream, or your bigger desire was actually manifested or came into existence. So this means that you still have some work to do, even if that work means being a little bit more patient, or going with the flow, working with what you've got. So you're not quite there yet regarding the big goal, the big picture, the bigger dream. And even if this Nine of Wands state is still gonna persist in your life, because you still have to hold your ground, defend your principles, or do whatever it is that you're doing. But with this Nine of Cups, help coming in, support, for some people resources, for example money, help, a job, partners, emotional well-being, emotional strength, inspiration, creativity. So basically, you're gonna be in your true position of power, because enduring, standing your ground, the Nine of Wands, strength in opposition, is gonna feel much more different when you're not wounded. When you're wounded, when you're at the very, very end of your powers, when you're end of your resilience, your endurance, it feels like a massive drama. It feels like being caught up in a hurricane and you have no hope of ever getting out. But when you have everything in your life to support you, it feels that you're actually strong and doing it. And that makes all the difference, because that already offers confidence, that already offers self-worth. In other words, when you do something, even if it's very, very difficult and hard, from a position where you truly believe in yourself and you genuinely believe that you're capable of doing it from start to finish, that is like a totally different expression of this energy that can actually make you feel alive and not the opposite. Now we have next the Three of Swords reversed, clarified by the Ace of Swords and the Magician. And this does mean some kind of fated communication, information, or any kind of clarity reaching you, which will have a very healing effect. It will dispel some kind of fear or some kind of mental wound, where something might have caused you to overthink, lose sleep, be anxious, be very, very agitated and not at ease. And this can either be something very karmic, where it might come from a person from your past and they open up to you about something and that just calms you down, or someone just gives you a really, really good news and that news just dispels your fear. It stops the anxiety there. And the Magician, it actually makes you feel that you're in control. Everything is gonna go, especially in the close future, in accordance with your own personal timing. So it will be comfortable. It's like a mental comfort, where you no longer fear and where you can actually see yourself making the right choices, working with what you've got, and that ultimately represents seeing and feeling and even knowing that the light at the end of the tunnel is just a step, just a small sprint away. And those of you who have problems in love, for example, you're suspecting your partner of not being loyal, or your partner offended you with some kind of words, with something that they said, or a gesture, or anything like that. Or you had a really bad argument with your partner, and both of you thought about splitting up and stuff like that. Well, whatever information reaches you is gonna show you the opposite, so you will try your best and even learn to trust again. And this can also play out in a totally different way, where you will see that actually you created the problem, or you projected your fears onto your partner, and that was the core of everything. So basically this means that your partner was innocent all along, and that will dispel your fears and even make you feel a tiny bit guilty for suspecting or being so irrational. But of course, if there was a relationship in your life in the past which wounded you, which caused you severe heartache, maybe some news or a communication from that person is gonna help you get rid of the heartache, the trauma, or whatever that was. Maybe they're gonna say an apology, or that you were right all along, or that they as well see the reason why you had to go or why you were incompatible. Or if you suffered any kind of injustice, maybe it doesn't really need to go to divine justice or a court of justice or anything like that. They're gonna admit their mistake and make it okay again. So they will reclaim their honor and dignity in your eyes. And last but not least, this can also play out in a totally different kind of way, where that Three of Swords is your heartbreak. Regardless of what caused it, who caused it, it still left a very strong emotional and even mental blockage in you, which you have been struggling with for the past 3 years. And this Ace of Swords and the Magician can just represent that the person comes into your life who heals that. Maybe it's a new friend. Maybe it's someone who expresses romantic interest. Maybe it's someone who inspires you. Or maybe it's someone who reflects your true self-worth. But whatever this communication, this connection is, it will really, really turn the tables for you. Even if there is no commitment yet, even if this is, let's say, just a flirt, just a communication, you will still feel something very, very positive and healing about that. Now, the Devil, clarified by the Death and the Six of Coins, this can mean totally different things for different people. For some people, this is something truly positive, while for other people, it might not be the very best news. Let's start with the most positive expression. Now, for some people who are really trying to do something, for example, like a project, or they have a good business idea, anything that may do with Capricornian type of energy, so work, construction, mastery. It doesn't matter if it has to do with career or work, or if it's just something which is very personal to you, like a project, a hobby, a desire, a goal. You might get some conditioned help, or a solution or a breakthrough which has some kind of strings attached and conditions, but this is where the positivity comes into play. Whatever that condition is, whatever that compromise is actually something that you can not just work with, but deep in your heart of hearts, especially your shadow, might even find that amusing. It might even find it appealing. So that which should be, the devil, it actually turns out to be something joyful for you. And, it may sound strange, but you might even prefer it this way than totally unconditionally, because it has some kind of fun factor, or something which really stirs up your curiosity, or something that you're attracted to, something that you find very, very interesting. Of course, in a rather ego-based or material-based way, but that is not a problem whatsoever, because strings attached means that is what you have to offer in exchange. And if you're totally comfortable with that, well, then where's the problem really? For other people still, it just simply means that you get what you wanted, you get what you asked for, but perhaps not in a really miraculous type of way, because someone owes you something, maybe legally, maybe morally, maybe karmically. So someone who is actually indebted to you is going to break that obligation, may it be legally, karmically, materially, whatever, by giving you what you need or fulfilling their role. And that's a really positive completion, because they just simply do what they have to do. For others still, this can represent that you will make the decision to take a loan from a bank, from an institution, maybe from another person who you do trust. But the problem here is that you might be the type of person who is not very comfortable with the idea of loan, even if it's not complicated, even if it's easy, even if you kind of know that of course you can pay it back, there's no obstacles to prevent that, yet you might have to face this discomfort of yours with taking loans and just owing something. This uncertainty might cause a certain kind of unease, but this might be the compromise. You have to accept it and just work with the benefits that you will ultimately get. Now, the rather unfavorable representation of this energy might go to only specific kind of people who either receive in the present moment some kind of help, either from a charity, from a council, from the state, from an institution, may it be like benefits or housing. Something is offered to them free. Now, if you're in this situation, maybe something changes, for example, like the law or legislation or the situation changes, and maybe the help that you receive, may that be some kind of benefit or housing or whatever this is, will no longer be unconditional, or you might even risk losing it. But even if this happens, there is the Six of Coins. It's gonna be karmic, because you already have in your life, even if you cannot see it yet, a replacement, as in either a job is waiting for you and you don't know it yet, or someone comes in to help you, or the situation while you receive this help is gonna just end. So that means something really positive can come next into your life. But the moment it happens, you might not take it as good news, if you know what I mean. Now, we also have divine guidance. We have the Four of Swords and the Six of Cups. And this is very, very simple and straightforward. The Four of Swords means don't allow your mind to be tormented by fear, by insecurity, by overthinking. And there are moments, especially this week, when we might be triggered to do exactly that, to overthink, to have fears, to have night terrors even. But in those moments when we feel really, really uncertain, this is where the Six of Cups represents certain memories, maybe nostalgic moments, events in our past where we might have been in a similar situation, but either miraculously the divine either answered our prayers and showed us clearly that it has our backs and it solved that situation in our lives, and where we ended up after was a much better place than we could have ever imagined. Or that there is help in your life, that you're not alone. Maybe that Six of Cups represents a very, very good friend who will never ever leave your side. So it doesn't matter what happens to you personally, even if your fears might come to life and, manifest, you will not be alone. Someone will be there by your side and you're safe, basically. Or it simply represents that whatever happens next in your life, the next big karmic unfolding, let's say, is gonna be something so positive, so pleasant, that it will turn into a nostalgic moment. It will be permanently part of your pleasant memories, serving you as soul food for times in the distant future when you might be feeling a little bit down and hopeless. This concludes today's reading. Thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a blessed and magical week. Until next time, bye for now.